Blocks are really, really cool and also a little bit challenging to start with. What I want to show you is how you can change something from sitting within the content to being full width. So you'll see some of these like are from the end of the screen to the end of the screen, whereas other ones like this first one have white on the side. So I'm going to show you how you can make something full width if it's not already, if you want to add some emphasis. And I will also look at how to change something to be not full width. So let's do these two. And then we'll just preview them through this draft functionality. So this is what we're starting with. Let me change the heading here to be started non-full width and then started full width. Let me save that draft and then I'm going to refresh this. Oh, we got to put some content in here. Well, maybe it'll work now that I have titles. All right, that's good enough. So we have non-full width, we have one full width. We want to look at how we can change it so that they're reversed. And these ones are actually a little bit easier because they already have background colors, but we'll kind of work on that. So essentially, when I click inside of this, I'm clicking on just like this group, and this is not the parent group. So what I actually want to do, oh, this one might already be full width. This one has a cover. Let's add media and see what that looks like. No, this one's not full width. Okay, cool. So media library, doesn't really matter what I use. I'm going to save that just so you can see. Still not full width. Okay, that's good to know. So basically when I click on this, it's not necessarily clicking me to the top. This one would actually kind of work, whoop, 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 but that's going to the cover. I need to be on this very top level item. So list view, very much your friend. From here, the way to make something full width is to click on this kind of icon right here and then full width. And then vice versa, this says full width. I could click on full width or I could click on none to remove that. And then now when I save my draft, I love how this first one is not working, and it's because I have inner blocks use content width on a group that contains a cover. So that one's a little trickier. Sorry, they won't all be that tricky. Most of them I have formatted. It's only because it's a cover inside of a group. Most of them I have formatted correctly so that the top level group is what you'd be working with. So I apologize that was my example. So let me kind of explain what I just had to do with this one and then show you some other examples for working with this kind of full width change. So what happens is this whole template is full width, and then it's in a group that like you can't see the template, but the template has a group that says inner blocks use content width essentially. And so that means that everything inside of it starts out limited to whatever width that parent group has. And so when I insert these blocks and I don't tell it I want it to be full width, then it's limiting it. It's limiting the block to the width that I have set for the page. Now, if I go in and I say, okay, well, I want this group to be full width, that works out because the background is applied directly to that group that I'm making full width. And so that background becomes full width. However, everything inside of the group still has this layout that limits the inner width of it. And so that's why this media and text inside does not overflow. So let me add a background to this. So you can see that this white box is not full width. So I'm only making that parent full width, and then I'm limiting what's inside. This had an actual size defined with it. It was, instead of just saying constrained to layout width, I set it to 800 pixels. And so you'll see it's a little thinner. What happened with this group here is that I set that group to full width, but then everything inside of it, specifically that cover that I wanted to have the large image on, was constrained by this content width. So I had to turn this off and then make sure that cover was set to full width. Oh no, sorry, I just had to turn this off. So I could have left this on and then also set cover to full width, I believe. Both of those would have worked. Let's save that draft. So now this is turned on use content width, and then this one is set to full width. It has the same outcome. Oops, I'm getting there. So it looks exactly the same. So that is really confusing, but most of the patterns that I've inserted, that I've created for you, don't have that kind of double grouping. Not my patterns. Let's go to Creator Custom, see if I can find another one that is hopefully not a, it's like, let's do this one and this one, not a cover. So I'm going to delete the ones we started with, this group, and then also this group. So not full width, full width. Refresh that. And then you actually can't really tell that this one is not full width because it doesn't have a background. So let's add a background real quick. Different color so we can tell them apart. You can already see here in the editor, but there is what it looks like on the front end. And so now when I go through this process, this background color is applied to the group that I'm changing full width on. And so it's going to work as expected. I would say the main takeaways here are to double check that you're on this top item, because that's usually where you need to make this change. And then you shouldn't really need to make any other changes. I know I had that one example that was complicated, but for the most part, just changing it from full width to not full width, as long as you're on a top level group, is going to be what works. You can also check and see, like, make sure whatever has the background that you're trying to use is what you're selecting. So that would have kind of given us a hint when we looked at that cover. It didn't have any sort of background. It wouldn't have anything that I could see that it was full width. It technically was. We just didn't have a color to be able to see that. And so if you get into a situation where there is something more complex like that, kind of looking at this background and then playing around with this content width with, you know, what is top level and then what's nested in it. I mean, you could turn that off, or like I showed, you could just set the children to also be full width. So that does get a little more complicated, but for the most part, I think this rule of thumb, select the top level group, change it to full width or not, make sure it has a background color, is really going to get you a long way.